We are getting ready to go live. I'll be right with you. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll be right back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, interdimensional creepers, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you are. I don't know. We all identify as something different day to day. A big warm welcome, anyway, to the Kev Baker Show. Maybe I'm identifying as somebody big today. You know, we have been doing a lot of talk about my ancestors lately, the little people. Yes, the gnomes, the norms. What is going on today? It's going to be one of these shows. I can tell already it's going to be one of these ones. It could be hilarious for you, torturous for me. But I've got a lot to get into today. But first up, right off the bat, I had been promising Gerald Celente tonight. However, when I was on air last night, by the time I got off air, I had an email waiting for me. And don't panic, Gerald is very near. In fact, he'll be here tomorrow. Fingers crossed, all going well. Gerald Celente, right here, same time, same place tomorrow. And of course, we're on Truth Frequency Radio, where we give you protection from deception. Not only that, we go out on tfrlive.com. I encourage everyone to check out Truth Frequency Radio. Over 30 shows on there, all uniquely brilliant, covering their own topics in their own wonderful way. And it's not just the Kev Baker Show there, and that's why I always encourage anyone who's listening on iHeart, on TuneIn apps, or over on YouTube in the simulcast over there, please, please, please head on over to tfrlive.com. And we've also got a chat room over there, and I'll be dipping my toe in there after the first break. So if you want to head on over there, get part of the roll call for the Kev Baker Show here, head on over to tfrlive.com/chat. So then, yes, a bit disappointed that Gerald couldn't be here with us tonight. However, I've managed to put together something. Don't you worry about that. There's some woo along the way as well, but it's more kind of out there woo that really it's a first time introduction for not only me, but I would imagine a lot of you out there as well, because we're going to be talking about not the men in black, but the men in white. And let's take it even further from that, because due to synchronicity or coincidence, as we're about to get into in the main part of the first part of the show here, that led me to something else, a different take on another story that we all love to get into. And I know all of you out there, you crave when we get into the old black-eyed children, right? Or the black-eyed kids, the BEK, as they're often referred to. Well, how about the white-eyed kids? Yeah, so that's going to be really interesting to get into tonight as well. I've got loads of other stuff along the way. And we even have the Book of the Bizarre. And this was sent to us by a listener out there. Big shout out to Jules. I'm enjoying my coffee and my Wookiee mug. But tonight we may all get the chance to indulge in and enjoy in some of the absolutely golden woo that can be found between the covers of this little book. It's essential, I would say, for filling anyone's Christmas stocking. If you don't know what to get a loved one, and they're like us, they're into a bit of the woo, I tell you, you couldn't go far wrong with the Book of the Mysterious. And no, I don't get paid to promote that. A listener sent it, and you get it. You get exactly how my head works. And I know the audience get how my head works, and that's why I keep coming back for more time and time and time and time again. And usually when I'm putting together the shows, I'll often tell you that I work through patterns, coincidence, and I give all credit and I pay homage to Clyde Lewis and Chris and Sheree Geo as well for pointing me in that direction, the direction of something that's very apt for the network we're on, the synchronicities that are all around us, tuning into that frequency, that vibration that seems to bring what they call coincidences. But tonight we're not going to do a show that I managed to put together through coincidence, we're going to look at coincidence itself. Because it took a weird turn today when I went to one of my favourite websites, Mysterious Universe. That's where we're going to be starting tonight. It's a story about coincidence. And tonight's first part of the show, well, this opened it up to the world of coincidence. And some say coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. Others say there's no such thing as coincidence, only the illusion that there is coincidences. So yeah, this is going to be a bit cool, bit different, bit weird, but that's how we roll here on KBS. And don't worry about all those pressing matters that the mainstream media want to tell you about 24/7. They'll all still be waiting for you at the end of these 2 hours of info and woo-filled material. And not only that, if we have time, as we now do on the show, as we try to rise up to and try and kind of emulate and surpass the mammoth shows of Coast to Coast and Art Bell and all that. And I'm smiling, I'm laughing, folks. It's because people have been saying that lately, because we open up the phones. And opening up the phones, it used to scare the willies out of me. It really did. But I've come to learn that really the best woo is to be found with all of you. I didn't intentionally rhyme that before you think, wow, Kev put that together pretty well. No, it just comes out this way. Maybe it's just a coincidence, right? So let's get into the world of coincidences. I've got it all pulled up here. But before we get there, before I forget, keep your eyes open, info seekers. Yes, James O'Keefe, Veritas, they've been doing some really good work just lately, right? We can think of many a whistleblower or exclusive that has come from Project Veritas. Some love them, some hate them, but they're teasing that there's another big exclusive on the way. So keep your eyes open for that. And just a quick headline here, a bit of a feel-good story. It's Christmas time, right? We're building up to Christmas, so I'm going to try and bring one feel-good story to the table every day. So much doom and gloom out there. You don't need me to weigh even more dark topics on you, right? So check this out. I thought this was really, really cool. And in this story here, I think lies the example of what I say all the time. We're never, ever going to be changing the world to the way we want it to be, but we can definitely take actions to change the world of those around us, whether we know them or whether they're complete strangers. And we should be doing it every week of the year. I get that. But it becomes a bit more poignant the closer you get to the Christmas period, and it just has that warm, fuzzy feeling about it. And here it is here. A plumber hatches a plan to help 1,000 vulnerable households stay warm for free. Yes, James Anderson, big shout out to James Anderson. He's refusing to take payment for replacing boilers and repairing plumbing for those who cannot afford a plumber. And it says a plumber is aiming to raise £30,000 to help 1,000 elderly, disabled and less well-off householders stay warm and dry over the winter for free. James Anderson, 52, is urging other tradesmen to offer their help as part of his not-for-profit company, Defer, which works with plumbers and heating engineers to provide work for customers unable to afford it. And the Burnley plumber, who says he is receiving 15 calls a day at the moment, is asking for help from the public to raise £30,000 through GoFundMe, which he says will mean he can help 1,000 more families over the winter. And Mr. Anderson's kindness went viral earlier this year when an invoice showing a charge for £0 work for a 91-year-old woman with leukemia when her boiler was the receipt was shared online. So yeah, like I say, can't change the world, but James Anderson here, he's changing the world of people around them at a time of year, and for people, less fortunate than ourselves, hats off. We spend so much time looking at the negative in people. Sometimes it's easy to give up on our fellow humans. I felt like that many a time. That's why sometimes, dare I say it, it's almost appealing to assimilate and go into the Borg. But then there's little reminders. There are nice people out there. And I know that firsthand. You know, we all know my story, but if it wasn't for the generosity of all of you out there, the love, the support, the fact you keep coming back to listen to the show, everyone in their own way doing their little bit to contribute to what we see here on TFR and when I go over and do the streams on YouTube and things like that. And not only that, but, you know, people out there, they actually want to give. And it was Chris and Cherie Geo. I have to credit them for this because they gave me an entirely new way of looking at that. I've always gone through life a bit humble. I didn't like to receive charity, so to speak. You know that. Us guys, we're proud. You know I'm toxic. But Chris and Cherie, they explained it a totally different way. And the way they were looking at it was oh, and there's a super chat. How timely.
How about men with short kilts are crazy?
Oh, they are crazy, that's for sure. But yeah, I was looking at it the wrong way because I thought I was doing the right thing by refusing generosity at times. But really, I was affecting that other person in a negative way because some people enjoy giving and they get from that. And maybe they've got more than others out there. Point being, if somebody offers to help, don't actually stand in their way because they may be doing something on their journey that they need to do. Karma, dharma, all these things come into it, okay? And it's a different way of looking at things. And it's always nice to give, isn't it? Well, enjoy, you know, seeing somebody's face when they receive something they weren't expecting. It's always nice to get, but it's always nice to give as well. And I think, you know, in a better world, on the macro, as opposed to this one boiler or one joiner, one plumber down in Burnley, you know, we could make the world work like this somehow, right? Where we could, you know, take away the money factor. And I know it's pipe dream kind of stuff. I get that, folks. However, people are skilled at some things. Some people want to give. Some other people can do other things. I think we would find a way to make things work. Maybe in smaller, closer-knit communities, probably. Maybe a bit harder on the city kind of scale. I get that. You know, you'd probably need some kind of management coming in then. And then once that starts, well, that takes away the beauty of that new system I'm talking about. But yeah, I thought I'd start off that way tonight because, like I say, even I get depressed at some of the doom and gloom that I put out there. I do. Honestly, I don't enjoy it. I don't. But let's get into the world of synchronicities. So I think the best place to start would be the story that really provided the push for me to look deeper into synchronicity and some stories, some strangeness surrounding what they call coincidences. Yes, indeed. So the first port of call, the first domino to drop, shall we say, on today's journey through coincidence, by coincidence, started like this. And it was with Mysterious Universe. It was one of their top stories. The strange tale of the separated twins who lived the same life. Now, there's some real strange woo, I think, anyway, when it comes to twins. Some things are totally just head-scratching, inexplicable. And you hear about sometimes, even though separated by half a world of geography, you know, they're feeling the same things. One can pick up on emotions the other is going through and vice versa. It's weird. There's a quantum entanglement there, if you ask me. But this story here, I think that goes even further. So it says twins have long had stories of strangeness surrounding them. There's a certain allure to them that has sprung stories of psychic connections, shared experiences, and interconnected lives. Now, scientists are very interested in such possible links between these twins, and throughout history, there have been some truly amazing stories of twins and their odd synchronicity. Yet everyone in a while, there's a weird tale of twins case that manages to truly stir up speculation and debate. And one of these cases, or one of these, is surely that of the Jim twins of Ohio. Not to be mistaken with Jim and the twins, it's just the Jim twins, okay? It's in 1940, two twin boys were born in Ohio and subsequently put up for adoption at a mere 3 weeks of age. Now, one of the babies was adopted by the Lewis family in Lima, Ohio, and the other by the Springer family in Pica or Picou, a mere 40 miles away. Now, in some sort of oversight, the parents of each respective family were oddly told that there had been a twin, but that it had died at birth, and so the boys grew up unaware that their other half even existed at all. Imagine that. You know, here they are growing up, and unbeknown to them, not only do they have a sibling, but they have an identical twin. Amazing. So the only hint that something was amiss was when Mrs. Lewis was at the courthouse filing paperwork for the adoption and receiving one cryptic statement from an employee stating that the other one had been named Jim too. Now, no other information was forthcoming, and so she raised her son with a sneaking suspicion that his brother was perhaps not dead at all, but rather out there somewhere. So in later years, when Jim Lewis was 39 years old, that nagging little hint would finally become too much to bear, and so he went about seeing if his twin was really alive. Now, after some digging and going through records at the probate court, Lewis was able to find out that he did indeed have a living twin, also named James. And not only that, but he lived just a mere 40 miles away. I mean, that in itself, I think the proximity that they lived, 40 miles, and yet totally unaware, oblivious to the fact that either existed for so long, even that is the start of some really, really deep woo that's about to come, folks. This takes it to a new level. So it says, after contacting the Springers and talking with his brother on the phone, the two long-lost brothers were finally reunited in a tearful reunion in 1979, where all present would be surprised, and not only their uncanny physical resemblance, being the exact same height and weight, as well as the fact that they had both been named James, but also that in an eerie string of astonishing, and here it is, coincidences, it would seem they had more or less lived the exact same life. Now, at this point, I'm going to drop an image into the chat room over at TFR for the listeners over there so you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. It's the Jim twins, if I can find the actual picture. Yes, there we go. I'm dropping that over there now. And yeah, I get it. They're twins. They look alike, but wait. Oh, but wait. It would turn out that both of them had grown up with a dog named Toy, and both of them had each been married twice. In both cases, the first wife being named Linda and the second wife being called Betty, for which they both often left post-it messages around the house for. Now, at this point here already, we're starting to enter the realms, like if you were putting statistical kind of or probability odds on this, you're starting to get to the realms of your more luck of winning the lottery than this actually just taking place all randomly. Is everything connected? Well, let's see. Let's go on. They both had sons, one of them named Jim Allen and the other called Jim Allen. Now, one's called Jim Allen, it's Allan, and the other's called Jim Allen, and the Allen is spelled Allan. Just that slight little difference, you see. Excuse me, a little drink of coffee there. This is getting good. Both had pursued law enforcement training and had held part-time posts in the profession, one being a security guard and the other a sheriff's deputy. And both men had strong talent and affinities for mechanical drawing and carpentry. Now, both Lewis and Springer drove light blue Chevrolets, and both families went every year on vacation to the same beach in Florida. They also both smoked the same brand of cigarettes, They drank the same brand of beer, and both men were nail biters and had problems with migraine headaches. Now, I get it, okay? You can have the twin thing, you can have them looking alike, you can have the height thing. You could probably have certain traits that display in both parties as well. But when you start buying the same type of cars, the same color of cars, when you start going to the same places on holiday, this is where you start going, for me, from coincidence to synchronicity to something far deeper that maybe we have no way of actually explaining. Yeah, go figure. It's scary for us humans to really think about that, isn't it? You know, we love to, we yearn, in fact, we crave to find meaning in everything, even when there is no deeper meaning. And perhaps that in itself is what has given birth to what we call coincidences. That, yeah, sure, on the face of it, it looks like it's all connected, but literally, we're just making connections in our mind and making patterns because that's what we feel most comfortable with. But could it be all random? Jim, the twins? Not Jim and the twins, Jim twins. So these incredible similarities in two twins who had never known each other until well into adulthood were so shocked that they caught the attention of Thomas Bouchard Jr., a psychologist. Somebody that gets inside your head. Watch those people. I've got to go and see one of them soon. Can you believe it? They might just lock me up, folks, at the University of Minnesota, who had been involved in an ongoing study of twins called the Minnesota Twin Study. Now, think of the bad guys in World War II as well. They were absolutely fascinated with the science of twins, as well as researching the medical and psychological characteristics of twins. The team had been monitoring differences between identical twins and fraternal twins reared together and those reared apart, looking for any inexplicable similarities to show how much nature and nurture played a role in their development. And so with the Jim twins, they had hit a gold mine. Not only did they display astounding similarities, but they were apart the longest of any known separated twins at the time, and so were of great interest to the researchers on the project. A variety of background checks, psychological tests such as personality tests and IQ tests, and interviews were carried out with Lewis and Springer, which confirmed that it was all very real and very strange. There were even new similarities found that no one had realized, including that both men had nearly the same memory capacity, spatial recognition skills, religious and moral attitudes, personality traits, and even the same IQ, leaving the scientists flabbergasted with the sheer amount of uncanny similarities. It was very much in keeping with their findings during their study of 81 pairs of twins who had been separated at birth that showed that genetics seemed to have more of an influence on mental capacity and personality than had previously been thought. But with the Jim twins, it was so pronounced and beyond the norm, with similarities such as the names of their wives and kids and even childhood dogs. That is bordered on almost paranormal. I think we're starting to get down there, almost maybe getting a glimpse at some of the code that exists in the Matrix. And obviously, we ourselves, if you want to make that link between us and the analogy between humans and computers, we are based on code, genetics, DNA. Now, I don't know any computer program in the world that has 95% of this almost divine type programming that doesn't do anything, and only 5% it runs the whole show. It's ridiculous. Of course, all of that genetic material goes to make up absolutely everything that we are, and probably then some. And if we are in some kind of simulated reality, and that takes nothing away from the reality of your life folks. It's just the way that I try to best imagine how all of this works, okay? Then it would stand to reason that there are going to be repeating codes. And when you see twins like this, they're not meant to be separated. I think when you separate these twins, that's when you get these astonishing kind of similarities. And I think they're meant to be together. That sounds weird. Why did I say that? Because do you think if they had been brought up together, all of these things would have happened the same way? No, they wouldn't have. They'd have been on different paths. So is it just a coincidence that they were separated? Is it just a coincidence they all went on to live out the same program in the same matrix? I don't know. You know me, I see coincidence everywhere. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, folks. Yes, indeed. There we go, folks. I'm just going to get a quick drink of coffee and I will be back with you. But think about it. Is it all just a coincidence? I'll be right back. Who have we got in there? We have got Queen Goddess, Cricket, The Rock Man, Marty, Brian, Frank, Rosanna, Black Templar. We have got War, First World Problem, Susie, Brett, Lisa, Susie. Oh, scrolling on up here. John Nelson was first today. John Nelson has entered the race to be first. Remember, folks, I'm keeping count. December matters. Hashtag first in chat matters. Remember, folks, do me a huge favour. Hit like, hit share. Let's get it out there. And I'll be back on TFR Live and YouTube just shortly. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's Kev Baker Show. If you're just tuning in and joining us now, where were you for the start? Is it just a coincidence that you missed tonight's show about coincidence? No, thank you all for tuning in today. I'm really starting to feel a vibe, feel a buzz, talking about the coincidences that I usually use to put together the shows. And over in the Wookiee Cave right now, I'm going to give some of the people over there, no, all of the people over there, a shout out. And it was somebody, Bam, in there. Bam was saying, good woo, Kev. And I've heard about other cases that are practically the same. And yeah, this is where it goes for me anyway, beyond coincidence, into the realms of synchronicity. And then, like I say, dare I say it, that thing we hate to imagine the most. Something that we just can't explain. Oh, we hate that. We hate that. And maybe that's why we come up with things like coincidence and synchronicity. Maybe we're making a whole heap of something about nothing. Ever been there, waking up at the same time of night? 3:33, 111, those repeating numbers, things like that. That plagued me, absolutely plagued me in the build up to 2012. Can you imagine the mess that my head was in when I start seeing numbers that I couldn't interpret? Did they mean something? And in my mind, of course they meant something. I've woke up not once, not twice, but umpteen times at 3:33, coming up to 2012, end of the mind calendar, woo, woo, woo. Was it just coincidence? Did it have a deeper meaning? Why were there so many people around the world at that particular period of time experiencing numbers in that way? What did it all mean? Well, I hate to tell you, because I don't think any of us truly understand. And from time to time, it would appear that these coincidences, these synchronicities, it's almost like we ride a wave. Sometimes they're few and far between, and it's a stretch at best, some of the stuff that I put together. And some may say, well, that's just your crappy researching skills, Kev. And I would say, yes, touche. Because I'm not a researcher, I'm a host. But you get it. In the real world, there's times when you can't get away from these synchronicities. And then we can seed coincidence and seed synchronicity in the mind of somebody else totally unintentionally. You buy a new car. Say it's a red Ford. You introduce it to your new friend, you go get coffee, you come back, you drop your friend off, and you've set your friend down a rabbit hole, my friend. You didn't even mean to, because from that point forward, is it synchronicity? Is it coincidence? What the hell's going on? And why are you always seeing that red car? Was it always there? Did you not notice beforehand? Were you not paying attention? If you weren't paying attention, how in hell's name did you get from A to B without getting hit by the car that you weren't seeing? So why is it all of these things happen? And why is it gives us that kind of weird feeling when we're caught in the middle of a coincidence trap? Yes, indeed. So back to this story, we've got one more paragraph to go. But yeah, there's definitely something about twins. There's definitely something about coincidence. And when it comes to the twins that we were talking about, the Jim twins, not Jim and the twins, the Jim twins, I don't think they looked anything like the photograph that they used for the headline for the article, thankfully. There they are there, yes, very twin-like. But is it just me? It can't just be me. This goes way beyond, like, dare I say it, air quotes, coincidence, right? What else is going on here? Could it be that code I'm talking about as well? And it says there is not much understanding on what could be going on here, and the various odd coincidences and connections to the case of the Jim twins and other similar cases are not fully understood. What is going on here with these two and others like them? What forces connect them and make them so similar despite having never met? Are there things at play beyond our understanding, which we have yet to realize, or is this all random chance? Whatever you may personally think, the odd case of the Jim twins remains one of the most compelling and flat-out strange cases of separated identical twins on record, and will probably not be fully understood for quite some time to come. Now, does this in any way dispute, fly in the face of free will? You would imagine if you had two individuals, no matter how much DNA they share, you know, if free will, I mean, the amount of similar decisions that must have been taken, not just by them, but by people around them, for all of those similarities to arise. I mean, really? Are we going for that? So then, does that mean everything is already set out for us? Is it almost like a role playing game where we get A, B, C, D choices at certain junctures in life? Like maybe 10 times a day, maybe 100 times a day, maybe every single thought we have is one of these junctures. And you're telling me then that these two people managed to have all these things all line up just so they happened the same way? I really do think there's, and I hate to say this because that means then that we have no direct influence, right? But we do, because if it is that multi-choice kind of path, and I think it is, and I think it's a loaded kind of game, even if we see it or we don't see it. I think it's an A and B choice, every critical decision we make. I think you either take the right decision, you make the right move, you think something positive, you do something to benefit others, or you go the other way. And depending on which way you're splitting over time will depend where you end up. Now, is that pure chance? Is it all random? Oh, well, it's down to you in the end of the day which choices you take, and maybe some of nature and nurture will influence which choices you take along the way. But still, it's your choices, right? Free will and predetermined all at once. I don't know, but it gets weird. We're talking coincidences, and what does a coincidence mean to you? Does it mean when you turn up for coffee with one of your friends that they just happen to be wearing the same sweater as you? Unbeknown to you, they went to the same shop and got that same sweater from the same range, and you chose to wear it on the same day. A fashion no-no if you're a girl, a fashion who gives a damn if you're a guy. But you get me, right? And is there any deeper meaning to turning up at Starbucks with the same colour of jumper as a friend? I wouldn't think so, right? Susie, thank you so much. And then there's other types of coincidences which I differentiate into synchronicities. Now, the synchronicities versus coincidences, there's a distinct difference for me. And this is how I look at them. Because synchronicities, it's something deeper and something weirder. It's like unbeknown to you, one day you'll come into contact with something, or you'll read something, or you'll see something that just a further down the line, it's either going to become relevant to you in a deeper way, unbeknown to you when you'd first seen it. Something else is going to happen that will make that actually important at that point. Or it's going to provide impetus for you to get to where you need to be in whatever you were researching in the first place. Or maybe it's the key, the synchronistic key that means nothing to you. But you might have a conversation with somebody. It might come up in the conversation randomly, or is it random? And it's the one thing that person you're conversing with has been waiting for. Now, that for me goes beyond the whole coincidence into synchronicities. And when you start tuning into synchronicities and you really get good at it, that's when it leads to putting on shows and you can start relying on it. I know that's a bad thing to do, almost relying on spotting the synchronicities out there. But I find when we're doing good shows, the synchronicities flow. And I can tell when I'm just off that vein of synchronism, just missing it, when I myself come off air and I feel, well, don't know. But then I hit that vein of woo again, that vein of synchronicity, and you have to follow it. And your gut, that whole gut feeling that you get, you know, you've got neurons in your gut, you've got neurons in your heart. You have to really listen to your gut as well. The gut, it's like the synchronicity barometer. That's what it is. When you get a gut feeling, it can be instinctual, it can be there to protect you, it can be there to push you one way or another, but it's also there to really solidify that synchronicity that you think you might be seeing. If you get that, oh, yeah. You know that feeling. You know, you've all been there. Wow, how the heck? I wasn't even looking for this. It's here now. Or how did that guy know I was even talking about that? How did he know to tell me that piece of this puzzle he had no clue of? You see, that transcends somebody just turning up with the same sweater as you, right? You would hope. So let's take a look at the meanings, literally, of coincidence versus synchronicity. So this is what I've done today. This is the exact same path I followed. We're going to follow my coincidence or synchronistic, try spitting that one out, Kev, path. So let's do it. First up, we go to coincidence. A coincidence is when two or more similar or related events occur at the same time by chance and without planning. Okay, fine. So then we go to synchronicity. So synchronicity or synchronism is coincidence in time. Oh, now, this word, I tried saying this earlier on. This could go horribly wrong. Contemporaneous. Contemporaneous. Yep. Simultaneous, right? We'll move on to that one. The arrangement or treatment of synchronous things or events in conjunction, as in history. Cycles repeating. Don't we often talk about that? Is it coincidence? Is it synchronism? Or is it just pure random chance? And we're going to be taking a look at one of these historic ones in a moment. It's famous. We've probably all heard it. But it goes beyond coincidence for me. There's definitely something going on. A tabular arrangement of historical events or personages grouped according to their dates. I wouldn't really throw synchronism in with that. Physics, electricity, the state of being synchronous. Now, I think when you are witnessing, experiencing, dealing with synchronicities coming your way, I think it is that we are in sync. I know that sounds ridiculous. What does that even mean? I think we're on that frequency. I think we're on that vibration. And people saying, what vibration, what frequency? I don't know. But it's the one that this universe operates at. And you can look at synchronicities and coincidences. I don't rule out that it's God's way of remaining anonymous. I don't rule out the fact that it's something to do with the programming in the Matrix. I don't know what's going on here, but there's something deeper to it. Like I say, there's more to it than turning up at Starbucks and having the same hat on as one of your friends you haven't seen for many a year. And then they go on to talk about psychoanalysis, the simultaneous occurrences of casually unrelated events, and the belief that the simultaneity has meaning beyond mere coincidence. So the simultaneous occurrence of casually unrelated events and the belief that the simultaneity has meaning beyond mere coincidence. Well, I would say that one there is what best describes all of us, right? And sometimes there is a deeper meaning. Sometimes that synchronism is that golden vein that I'm talking about. These synchronicities that we see, it is something. But sometimes, equally, maybe even more so. Maybe we're just that used to looking for patterns that we see them everywhere. But does that mean they exist? Not all of them. Not all of them. That's why you've got to be also finely tuned to be using discernment, because it's easy to get carried away with synchronicities, especially when it gets to, remember I said about the car? Remember I said about your friend maybe taking you home in the car and you start seeing that car everywhere, here, there, everywhere. And you know, sure, that might mean something on a deeper level. Personally, I think it's something to do with almost confirmation bias. It's not that you're actively looking for the car, but your conscious mind, it's now conscious of it. And there's a seed sitting there in the back in the subconscious, even when you're not thinking about it. And boom, there you go. Comes right to the front of the mind. Now, does that mean there's deeper meaning and there's something going on? No, it doesn't. It's still a pattern. It is still a pattern, but then it's only a pattern. You see what I'm saying? And I've been there where sometimes when you're convinced something's going on and the next event happens or something else goes down and you go looking and, yep, that pattern's there. But sometimes it's just a pattern. It doesn't have any deeper meaning. And that in itself can lead to many, many, many a dark and bottomless rabbit holes. And by the time you realise you've gone down one of them, you know, and that's important that you admit to yourself you have gone down one of them. You know, you pull yourself back and you try and get back into that groove again. Yes, indeed. So we're going to go deeper now because we're going to look at one of the coolest, synchronistic, coincidental stories that I always remember the first time I heard it. It's almost like that JFK moment, if I had been alive when JFK was around. And it's JFK, we're going to... I liked how I did that. But yeah, the synchronicities and the similarities between Kennedy and Lincoln. Now, I'm sure many people out there have already heard this, so I'm not going to spend too long on it. But, you know, there's so much going on in the world. So much going on in the world, and you all get it. You've all been there. That just a couple of weeks ago, I hate saying it, but I must apologise because we here on the Kev Baker Show, we didn't mark the anniversary of that day in Dealey Plaza. And I think it's always important to mark those historic days, especially when they give us a window and insight into what's going on nowadays. And that one certainly does. But as a little way to make up, we'll take a little bit of a look at the woo between President Lincoln and between Kennedy. And I get it, folks. I get it. Snopes. Yes. The masters of facts and truth. The keepers of the information. Of course, they've done their best job to debunk this. Although I think to say debunking it is stretching it a little. They get so picky and so nuanced, trying to find holes in it. I still think it's very relevant. We're going to go through some of them now. And then we'll take it into one last story about how these things we're talking about, these synchronicities, these similarities, these coincidences, how sometimes they go even further and how they can line things up to put people in the right place where they need to be at the right time, where they should never be, or somehow save somebody from what would have been something very tragic indeed. And the way that they come about to be not there, if that makes sense, they should have been there. There was no reason. They were maybe working, maybe should have been there for some other reason, but by some chance, some series of events lines up that means they aren't where they should have been. And then tragedy strikes. And did coincidence really save them? Did a random series of events line up in the universe so that Joe Blogs or somebody else could be saved? Have they got something more to do later on down the line? Was it not their time? Again, is it all predetermined? It's weird, right? It's weird. So we'll get into that as well. But yeah, we get into the list here. And it says Lincoln was elected to Congress in 1846, and Kennedy was elected to Congress in 1946. Now, Lincoln was elected president in 1860 and Kennedy in 1960. Lincoln lost his wife, or his wife lost a child while living in the White House. Kennedy, his wife lost a child while living in the White House. Lincoln was directly concerned with civil rights. Kennedy was directly concerned with civil rights. Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy who told him not to go to the theater. And Kennedy had a secretary named Lincoln who told him not to go to Dallas. Lincoln was shot in the back of the head in the presence of his wife. And Kennedy, the same thing, in the head, in the presence of his wife. Lincoln, shot in the Ford Theatre. Kennedy, shot in a Lincoln made by Ford. Lincoln was shot on a Friday. Kennedy, you guessed it, also a Friday. The assassin for Lincoln was John Wilkes Booth. Was known by 3 names comprised of 15 letters. And then for Kennedy, the assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, was known by 3 names comprised of 15 letters. And just reading that there, Lee Harvey Oswald, I had Judith Very Baker on the show a couple of years ago now. One of the most wonderful women I've had the pleasure of interviewing. And she, of course, was the girlfriend of somebody that she only knew as Lee. And it was really, really strange talking to somebody who was so close and so intimate with one of the characters that was at the centre of one of the most controversial historic events in recent history, right? And again, I still think back about getting to speak to people like that. And it's kind of weird. It's kind of amazing. But we go on. So it says, and what a synchronicity, right? Lee Harvey Oswald goes out with somebody called Judith Very Baker, who ends up years later being interviewed by Kev Baker Show. I'm just saying. Did that mean anything? Who knows, you see? Is there a pattern there? Is it a greater picture? I don't know. Both shot Lincoln in a theatre and fled to a warehouse. Or sorry, I misspoke there. Booth shot Lincoln in a theatre and fled to a warehouse. And Oswald shot Kennedy from a warehouse and fled to a theatre. Go back to Lincoln. Booth was killed before being brought to trial, and Oswald was killed before being brought to trial. There were theories that Booth was part of a greater conspiracy, and there were theories that Oswald was part of a greater conspiracy. Lincoln's successor was Andrew Johnson, born in 1808, and Kennedy's successor was Lyndon Johnson, born in 1908. Andrew Johnson died 10 years after Lincoln's death. And you know, if I tell you Lyndon Johnson died shortly after Kennedy's death, well, not so shortly, but the same 10 years. Pure coincidence? A synchronism in history? A recycling of old code? I don't know. It all depends how you look at it. And we are all so important. We are the central figure when it comes to coincidence and synchronism, because some will see it, some won't. Yet we're all looking at exactly the same information. And that's why nurture and the things that we've learned, our life experience, most certainly does play a part in the coincidences that we may experience, the ones that we may witness, and the ones that we have no idea even exist. Think of all the coincidences that we do know about, and then think of the ones that we haven't even seen yet, because we've not had that idea seeded into us. But were they always there before that idea was seeded? Or did they only come about because we started to look for them and think for them? Or think about them? Remember the Slender Man, the whole tulpa thing? That thought form magic that we sometimes talk about, where intent goes, energy flows, and be careful what you think about. You know, maybe we ourselves create far more of the illusion that we call reality that we ever are able to comprehend. And if that's the case, if we are all in our own way creating our reality round about us, do we all live in our own universe? Are we creating our own worlds that collide every day? Your world's different than mine, right? When we come together, you see the world through your eyes, I see the world through my eyes, I've got my ideas about the world, you could just, boom, clash. Is this where then you get random coincidences and things spinning off in the distance? I don't know. It's the science of woo. Coincidence, synchronicity, and I tell you what, hour number 2 is nearly upon us, and I can't wait to get into this because this is where again synchronicity played a part today. Because I was on Mysterious Universe, I get that, but then I'm starting to look for related stories, and I come across 2 stories that almost fly in the face of all the things that we usually talk about on here. It's like Bizarro Land has just taken another 180 turn, only we're not the right way up now. We've kind of flipped over into some other weird dimension where black is white and white is black. Because I'm used to the men in black, but next the men in white. And after that, it's not the black-eyed children, we're going into the white-eyed children. And if that ain't enough for you, what about a pyramid in Scotland? We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Only on the Kev Baker Show on Truth Frequency Radio. Well, I don't know about you lot, but I'm having fun today. I like it. Deep thoughts are going on, random thoughts. Some mean things, some don't. It's up to you to see the synchronicity in all of it. Yes, indeed. I went there. Oh, new member on the way, Matt. Thank you so much. Oh, we're getting close. We're getting close to our next emoji. Get your thinking caps on. What emoji comes next? Matt, anyone else out there, make sure you email kbsdiscord@protonmail.com. Come and join the madness over on Discord. Oh, yes. And Chuck Bam Bam, dropping the truth bombs right now. Black-eyed dog man shapeshift into black-eyed children. That is terrifying. Scott Shot Hats, yo to you too. Yes, indeed. Will it be the cricket? Will it? Oh, I don't know. What else have we got? What else have we been speaking about? Maybe a gnome. Could it be a gnome? Mammoth! Big shout out to our friends down in Australia. Mammoth Hunter and the family. You ready? 3, 2, 1. Dang, dude! Scottish gnome looking good. Oh, mammoth sounds good as well. A tiny mammoth. It's almost like a quantum paradox. Oh, yes indeed. Ruby, that will be dropped by one of our glorious mods in the chat room. They will give you a link. We're going live again, folks. Stand by. Welcome back to hour number 2 on today's Kev Baker Show, right here on Truth Frequency Radio Network, TFRlive.com. And if you want to head out or head over to the chat room, be quick. I'm going to give them all a shout out in a little minute. I forgot to do it after the last break. Yeah, that's the way I roll. You know, we've got a really famous comedian over here, Billy Connolly. Absolute legend. Absolute legend, right? But one of his kind of shticks, why he's kind of funny, it's not just his absolutely on point, brilliant, spot on observational skills of things that we do every day that he manages to make hilarious, right? But something else that's funny as well is when Billy tells a joke, and he knows he does it because he talks about it, is he forgets where he's going. And he ends up getting into something else. And that leads to some other funny story. And before you know it, even you forgot where it all started, right? And then you'll remember. And you'll go back and finish the original story. Now, I'd never compare myself with Billy Connolly. But I tell you what, my mind sometimes works like that. Once you get going, once you get in the groove, you just go for it. You just kind of blinkers on and go. And I tell you, woe betide anything that gets in the way. And sometimes when you forget things, it just gets left behind like luggage out the boot of a car. And then you get to the break and you sometimes look in the rear view mirror and you think, look at all that luggage strewing on the road. All the things I forgot to cover. So one of them is the Truth Frequency chat room. You thought I'd forget again. I almost did. That would have been hilarious. But let me head on over there right now. And if you want to get there, it's tfrlive.com/chat. Yes, indeed. So in there we have me and my robot love interest, brown chicken, brown cow, lots of ones and zeros with little love hearts on it. Sophia the robot. Yes, indeed, she's in there. We've got the Wookiee, Bam, hilarious Nacy, one of our brilliant callers to the show. We've got All One, Bill, Stimulate, Gentle Civilian, and the Kind One. So yes, a big shout out to all of you in there. And Bill, no way, baggage cannot be your middle name. I don't believe that. So then, let's move on. We were talking about coincidences and synchronism. And when I was on the Mysterious Universe website, there were various links at the bottom to other shows or to the topics where you could find other stories about this. And this is where we start to flip things on its head. Because this then kind of led me into what I was laughing about. Almost being the inverse of the upside down world that we're in. You know, I often laugh and joke about upside down world, bizarro land, woketopia. And no, I promise, there's nothing that will trigger people tonight. I only come close to triggering people, maybe, the most easily offended with the next story, because it deals with colours. And I know colours can trigger some people out there. They just see colours everywhere. And they think you're discriminating and everything else, even when you're talking about totally disconnected topics from race. So we're not going to be talking about the black-eyed children or the men in black. Today, in the upside-down version of Bizarro Land, we're talking about the men in white. And the white-eyed children. Or should I say, the white-eyed kids. W-E-K. It sounds like some cool kind of text algorithm. You can all think up your own what that means. W-E-K, obviously white-eyed kids. But if you've got a better suggestion over at TFR, shove it in the chat room. YouTube chat, you can do the same. Fire away, throw it in there. Let's have your crazy suggestions. I probably won't be able to read any of them out on air, so just be aware of that. But let's do it, shall we? Shall we go and start to not dive down a rabbit hole? This is a rabbit hole that's so twisted and so weird and inverse to everything we've gone or everything we've talked about before that we're not going down it. No. We're getting a ladder and we're going up the rabbit hole. Now, this could get messy really quickly. I don't know if you've ever been up a rabbit hole, but this could get really, really messy quickly. However, here we go, because that sounded a whole lot more risky than it did when I was thinking of that joke earlier, all right? So then, here we are. The Man in White. I'd never heard of this. And I always, probably to the point of sickening people out there, talk about the Mothman prophecies and John Keel. And he was a paranormal investigator, supernatural kind of reporter back in the day. And there's a lot of talk about the people, the individuals who turn up around supernatural encounters, be it Bigfoot, be it UFOs, Mothman, not Mothman, Mothman, the actual cryptid, not the no, not that thing. But but yeah, the Men in White. I don't recall him talking about this, and if he did, then shame on me. But I'm not deliberately misleading you. I just can't remember this coming up. Men in White. Let's see what this says then. Let's get into it. So everyone knows about the Men in Black. Those nefarious strangers in their black suits that prowl the fringes of our imaginations and dominate the landscape of truly bizarre paranormal encounters. While the Men in Black are spooky enough, there seems to be a subset of reports that detail the phenomena of conversely men in white suits. And while there is no known connection at all to these two, and the cases of the men in white are far rarer, it gives us a look into some weird reports that are really hard to categorize. Now, first off, I want to state that isn't this really kind of out there kind of woo? I say that because anyone can make up a story about being visited by the Men in Black, and if you're going to do that, you're going to call them the Men in Black, because that's a term that's been popularized by movies and everything else. You say the Men in Black, people know what you're talking about. But to talk about the Men in White turning up at your door, now that's a bit different. Now, in my mind, because I'm of a certain age, and Jason, you'll probably remember this, you're a football fan, all I can think about, and it's hilarious, is when the Liverpool football team turned up for a cup final wearing these crazy white suits. The Men in White is not a good look. It's not the kind of thing you're going to get away with. You're going to stand out in a crowd. Now, the Men in Black, sometimes they're seen on the peripheries of these kind of events, almost like taking notes, observing things. You're going to stand out a mile if you're dressed in like some kind of pimp daddy white suit. I'm just saying. So for people to be reporting this, it might mean something, it might mean nothing, but I find it a lot more valid. It seems a lot more credible because it's not something that people can just jump on the bandwagon, if that makes sense. I hope you see where I'm coming from. So some of these encounters with men or apparitions in white suits have a decidedly sinister atmosphere to them, some sense of menace permeating them. One of these is a report from a witness who says this all started when he was dropped off at school one day by his mother, on by all appearances was looking to be just another ordinary day. As he was exiting the car, he says he had a vision of an ominous individual standing across the road, of which he says, I saw a man in a nice white suit wearing a white fedora standing outside my school. His back was to me at first, but as my mom stopped the car, he turned around. His face looked like it was made of cracked porcelain, and his eyes were white, except for the pitch black dot in the pupil in the middle. He gave off the most horrible vibes ever. He pointed at me, tipped his hat, and then grinned to reveal a nice set of fangs. He said, You. Then he disappeared. Now, this was very alarming to him, but since it seemed as if his mother had not seen the entity, nor did anyone else, he decided to stay quiet about it, all the while wondering if he had really seen what he thought he had. However, he soon saw the mysterious stranger again, this time standing in the middle of the baseball field, and this time a friend of his saw the figure too. Now, the individual once again vanished, and while this was all pretty unsettling, it would culminate in a rather harrowing and dramatic experience a few nights later. The witness says of this, I remembered the man in the white suit, but I soon learned that I shouldn't have ever ignored him. One night around 3 in the morning, oh, there's that 3 in the morning again. Just saying. I'd gotten up to use the restroom and was going back to bed when my closet door opened and the man in the white suit came out with a scruffier looking man. They pulled me from my bed and began to do something to me. I fell into a sort of limbo state where I couldn't speak or see, but I could hear and feel. The scruffy man said he wasn't sure if I would survive this. My chest felt like it was on fire and I felt someone reaching around inside me. Then it stopped and they both disappeared. When I fully came to, I was lying on the floor across my room and my chest was bright red and I had scratches on my chest and shoulders. My closet door was also open and I never leave it open because an open closet at night terrifies me and everyone else that I know. The same thing happened a few weeks later to my friend who saw the man or the men in the white suits. To this day, I'm not sure what they did. I do know that I'm a lot more in touch with the supernatural than I was before, and I wish I could remember his name, and I wish I knew what they did. Who were these apparitions and what did they want? Did it even really happen at all? Not all such reports have a terrifying or negative slant, and in other cases, we have such apparitions been of a more benevolent nature. Reddit user, Reincarnation, and that's the name of the user, claims to have had several encounters with what he calls the men in white, who he believes to be in a sense, like guardian angels. Now, one of these happened one day when he and his son had been visiting a local apple festival, parking their car on a dirt road outside of the farm. Now, he says of his weird experience. Due to the festival's popularity, their parking lot was filled and people had started parking alongside the road outside of the farm. Now, I had to park at the bottom of a long hill on a patch of dirt next to a ditch so that my car couldn't block the road. Now, by the time we were done, there were no longer any new cars parking. Several of the cars around me were gone, and no one was near the bottom of the hill where I was parked. When I tried to get out of the spot, my tyres just kept flinging up those loose rocks and couldn't get any traction. I kept trying to leave, but my car wouldn't move. I was about to get out, thinking maybe I should trek back up to the farm to ask for help, when a huge white SUV pulled up beside me. Now, mind you, I don't know where this guy came from because I kept checking my mirror when I was trying to get out of my spot and had a very clear view up the hill for any potential cars coming and would have seen a large white car coming. Now, out of the car came this big guy in a white shirt with a white baseball cap and white shorts, and he calls out, "Do you need some help?" and proceeds to go to the back of my car and gives it a huge push, and we basically sailed out of the rut and right onto the road. I called out, "Thank you," and waved, and he waved back and kept on driving. And he followed me, but when I turned at a bend, I lost sight of him. In another, possibly even stranger encounter he had with the men in white, he says, the next story took place nearly 20 years ago while I was driving home from college. It was 4 hours drive, and while I was still on the highway, a dump truck entered the highway and got in front of me. I kept my distance and was looking for an opportunity to switch lanes when the dumper truck's tarp flew off and covered my windshield completely. But instead of freaking out, a calm just came over me and a voice right in the ear. And remember, I was alone, it said, "Speed up and leave the steering wheel as it is." I followed the directions, even though I thought I would crash any second. And the speed I was going managed to whip the tarp from my windshield, and it flew off the highway into the trees. When I looked, the dump truck was far away, but I was also flanked by two little white cars, kind of like Toyota Corollas, and I felt safe between them. I thought at the time it was funny because I was also driving a white Corolla, and I thought, we must be a sight driving on the highway like a white car caravan. At the next exit, both the car in front of me and the car in back exited, and I continued driving home. So are they guardian angels or are they something else? And what do you think out there? Do you think there is a good aspect to this? Do you think it's as simple as black is evil, white is angelic in the kind of Judeo Christian kind of mindset or way of explaining things? Is that how simple it is? Is it color coded? I don't know. Other strange encounters are really hard to define and are not particularly malign or benevolent, just plain odd. Now, from True Ghost Tales comes one such account from a witness who at the time had just started a new job and was walking to work in broad daylight. Now, as he was walking along, he saw an eerie sight, of which he says, "To get to my work, I have to walk past a fire station. And as I walked past, in the corner of my eye, I saw a man standing in the middle of the fire station grounds. He was wearing a white suit and he had white hair. It made me jump a little because he was just standing there staring at me. But as I quickly looked up, there was no one there. I didn't stop until I got back into work, and I did look back a few times to make sure no one was behind me. I didn't get a bad vibe from him, so I'm not too worried about this. Also, opposite the fire station, there's an elderly people's home. I thought perhaps he may have been looking at that instead of me, and I just happened to catch sight of him. Was this just reading too much into things or something else?" Reddit user called Organic Beans has a pretty surreal account, which apparently happened to his mother. He says one day the mum was running late to a meeting and was frustratingly stopped at a red light. As she stood there anxious for it to change, she said that she could continue her half sprint, or so that she could continue her half sprint to her job. She noticed a man standing across the street who was impeccably dressed in an immaculate white suit, polished white shoes, and a white top hat. Now that's a hard look to get away with, unless you're a pimp. I'm telling you, you think about it. Come on, guys. Would you walk about anywhere in broad daylight, head to toe, white suit on, white shirt, white tie, white shoes, and a white top hat? A white top hat at any time with anything is going to make you stand out. It ain't happening, okay? So what the hell is this all about? And why would somebody report it if it wasn't real? How mad are you going to look if you... Imagine it. Anne comes home from work. How was your day, Anne? That was all right. How was your day, Kev? Well, you'll never guess what happened to me, right? I was walking round to the health centre, and there's this guy sat outside the health centre, and he's got like a full white suit on with a big white top hat. Now, I don't know if you've been to Glasgow, but you ain't making it home. You ain't making it home in one piece. You definitely ain't making it home with a hat, that's for sure. It doesn't happen. Big pimping, exactly. Right? So, it says the strangest part. What? That wasn't the strangest part. You know, how bad does it have to get that the dude wearing all of this garb isn't the strangest part of the story? So the strangest part of it was that no one else seemed to notice him, just sort of flowing around him and ignoring him, which was odd to say the least. The poster goes on to say of this experience, I like this because that's weird as well. Why weren't the passers-by paying attention to somebody dressed rather oddly? And I'm not discriminating against people who like identify as something that would wear a top hat. I don't know. Maybe they're one of these kind of steampunk dudes, but you don't usually see the steampunk dudes wearing the whole kind of white suit. These are goggles on, a weird kind of top hat thing going on. It's not steampunk. What's going on? And why was everyone else just ignoring them? I get it. I know we're all kind of iPhone zombies and we're looking down and things. But I tell you what, even out your peripheral vision, the middle of a city, some guy pimped out like that, you're going to look at him, right? Come on, right? If you ain't going to see that, don't ever go looking for Bigfoot. Okay? So it says, I live in a city where things like that are not common. No sugar, Sherlock. No sugar. Yeah, see, got to keep it clean, you know, watching my language. I'm cleaning it up, folks. People would usually stare or take pictures if you wore something like that. Exactly. Everyone would be taking selfies with that dude in the background. Look at me, look at this punk that I bumped into. And you'd be getting all that dopamine hits from the likes and the shares and yep, hashtag top hat dude. Yep. Shadow guy in a top hat. I don't know. So the man noticed my mum looking at him and he went up to my mum and he said with a smile, "You're very lucky." My mum found it quite strange, but she was in such a hurry she couldn't really process anything except for the fact that she was late for a meeting. So my mum just gave him a quick nod, and at the same time the light turned green, and my mum started to cross the road but couldn't stop thinking about how peculiar the whole thing about the man was. So she turned back to look, but the man was gone. Now, there was no way the man could have just disappeared, especially not in a pimped out top hat white suit, right? Because there was no small corners or alleyways to hide in. Plus, he stood out so much in the crowd that you can notice him far away. So what was this all about? And who was this man in white? What did he want? Where did he go? And what was the meaning of his cryptic remarks? It's almost dreamlike in its bizarreness, and a similar report comes from Reddit user M_Cam88, who says that he had been out with friends on the evening in question, walking downtown on a night with a gorgeous full moon above. At one point, his friends went on to a supermarket without him, as he took a rest in a nearby park to admire the view of the moon, after which he went to catch up with them at the store. Now, it was as he went around the corner to get to the market that he would have a rather odd experience. It goes on to say, "As I turned the corner, I immediately stopped dead in my tracks to see a tall African American who was dressed entirely in white, staring me dead in the eyes. The thing that stuck with me was not only what he said next, nor even his height, which had to be at least 6'4", but it was the way his eyes fixed on mine. You see, before I turned the corner, I was looking at that exact spot where my field of vision expanded to reveal his eyes. It explicitly felt as though he had been looking directly at me through stone walls. I stopped, and with him looking at me, he said these exact words. You ready? 'You're bright. You're blessed.' I just kind of nodded and walked around him to the store. But before I went in, I reflected on the way he seemed to have been looking at my eyes before I even saw him. I backtracked and spied around the corner. Nothing. There was no one. I should add that he didn't seem ethereal. There was no accompanying hallucinations or anything. It just stuck with me. The way he was there, almost out of nowhere and then gone. I think the reason I consider this paranormal is a combination of the fact that I've never forgotten the memory, particularly the peculiar staring and his words, then subsequent disappearance. Of course, it could have just been some guy who was wearing really clean white clothes and on the pimp, who liked to stand around corners preemptively blessing people and then running the full length of a city block to hide in case they did a double take. Other reports of the men in white seem to be firmly in the realm of ghosts. From Your Ghost Stories is an account from the US state of Virginia from a poster related to her mother's experiences. She says that one night her mother woke up in the middle of the night to something she could not explain. Something in the middle of the night she woke up, or sometime in the middle of the night, she woke up with the feeling of being watched. When she looked at the door, there was a tall man with a long beard and a long beard at the door looking at her. Problem about that? Number one, she had never seen him before. Number two, besides my parents and Elle being there, no one else should have been in the house. And number three, even if someone had come in the house and upstairs, my parent would have heard them since their room was right near the stairs. Anyway, the man had on a white suit and was looking at her like, "What in the world are you doing in my house, lady?" So was she scared, or she was so scared. There had recently been a murder down the road, and she wondered if the killer was in the house. Now, she tried to get her slipper to bang it on the floor. Oh, that's a woman after Anne's heart, eh? There might be a killer in the house. Just grab a shoe. Oh. No one heard the slipper, but finally she was able to scream for my dad. Before he could get there, the man had disappeared. And a few months later, my dad was clearing a squirrel out of the room in the house where the owners stored their belongings when he came across a picture of a tall man with a beard in a white suit. When he showed it to Elle, and she said she did not believe in ghosts, but that looked like the man she saw that night. It turned out she had seen the former owner of the house. We'll be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere. We've got one more segment to go. And it's the Black-Eyed Kids. You want to be here for that, right? You know you want to be here for that. So, folks, I'm going to get another little drink, wet the whistle. All this talking, it makes Kev a very dry boy. There'll be absolutely no PPP going on in the background. So I'll be back after these very short and cool and snappy tunes, right? We all love my music here. Nah, not that one. Oh, the original series, Angela. Oh, heck yeah. I remember that from my childhood. I remember that vividly. The remake, pretty cool. V for Vendetta, good movie. But remember, just like it was said in the chat room by Lisa, V is for Vagin. Don't forget, it's Uncut Thursday. Yes, tomorrow it's Scotty Lopez. He takes over the stream on a Thursday during the daytime. And yes, I know, I keep calling it the safe space. It's always going to be our safe space. And tomorrow, Scotty is leading the way. Yes, I know. I keep him gagged 6 days a week, but for one day only. On a Thursday, it's Scotty, uncut, unscripted, and unleashed. Welcome back, everyone. Final segment of today's Kev Baker show already. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. I think it's got better as the show has gone on, and that's the way we roll here on TFR, because after I go away, Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew, they're on the way. So there's one of those rhymes again. I need to get out of that little habit that seems to have, I'm trying to think now and been deliberate, that seems to have started occurring in my shows. Yes, none of that rhymed, so we're all right. We're good to go now. So yeah, we were talking about the Men in White. No, we're not talking about Michael Jackson on one of his tours, a holographic tour. No, we're not talking about the pimp at the end of the street. What, you mean you don't have a pimp at the end of your street wearing a big white hat and a big white suit? No, me neither, honestly. We don't have that here, only on a weekend. No, we're talking about the Men in White encounters that are sometimes, or most of the time, we talk about the Men in Black. In fact, I can't remember a single occasion when we came here and talked about the Men in White. Somebody over at TFR was talking about the fact that maybe it could be the sharp-dressed man. Remember him? Remember all that palaver on Boxing Day when somebody tried to set fire to their jockeys on a flight between Amsterdam and the US, and the sharply dressed man appeared at the departure desk? Maybe that was a man in white. I don't know. But let's go and see what it says in conclusion. And yes, it has gone very quick today. I get that. That's what happens when you're having fun here on KBS. When I affect the time continuum, you know it's been a good show, right? You know it. Damn, I need to stop smoking my own crack or something, man. I'm telling you. But yeah, let's go and see what they say in conclusion to the Men in White. So it goes like this. Was this a ghost or something more? Indeed, what lies at the origins of such outlandish encounters that we have looked at here? It is quite possible that we are looking at a range of different phenomena here with such reports as we have looked at here, with none of them linked in any way except for the detail of the white suits. But they are all very strange in their own right. What is going on with such reports? And from what sort of strangeness does these encounters, or do such encounters, originate? Are they demons, ghosts, or something else? Do they have any connection to their black-suited brethren? There is no way at all to know. And these impeccably dressed men in white will likely remain spectres beyond our understanding. Yes, indeed. Perhaps one day soon. Maybe one day in the weird and wonderful world of political correctness, or as I call it, woketopia. Maybe all of us who identify the same as me, us old school dinosaurs, toxic white males, maybe we'll be forced to wear white jumpsuits and white top hats just so that people can see us, so that they don't have to wait to talk to us to find out that we still come armed with common sense and the ability to say it like it is. So I say, wear that white suit with pride, my fellow brethren. Wear it with pride. But I tell you what, I won't be wearing anything. I ain't going to be leaving the house anytime soon, because I thought I had come across the creepiest thing ever when it was the black-eyed kids, right? Oh, kids already take the spookiness and dial it right up to very, very, very scary. And then you add in those jet black eyes, those soulless, deep, dark pools of whatever it is that makes up their eyes. It's almost as if they've been infused with or possessed by the black goo. But what if I was to tell you, damn rhyme again, what if I was to tell you, forget the black-eyed kids, because they're one thing that we still need to be very aware of and check under the bed for at nights and things like that. But there's a new ghost in town, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all, because it's the children again, only this time they have got white, soulless, bottomless eyes. Can eyes be bottomless? They can now. We'll go with that. Right, so here we go. Let's get into it. Strange encounters with the white-eyed kids. Reports of the phenomenon of strange... You know what we need in the background for this? We need a little bit of, like, scary music. I think, anyway. Trying to build up, make it a little bit creepier in here. Dial up the creepy factor, maybe. Here we go. So reports of the phenomenon of the strange beings known as the black-eyed kids have been reported for decades and generally follow a certain frightening pattern. The children, usually in pairs but not always, appear mostly in rural or sparsely populated areas. They typically appear as normal children from afar, but a closer inspection will reveal that they have a sticky, pale pallor to them, and their eyes are completely dark pools of black without any discernible iris or pupil, akin to the eyes of a shark. Although the tales may vary in their details, these mysterious entities are almost always described as exuding an intense wave of dread and panic, and their eyes are said to have certain disturbing, sinister, and hypnotic quality to them. Many of you probably know these entities and have become quite a fixture in the world of the paranormal. But what you might not realize is that there is another permutation of this phenomenon. While considerably rarer than reports of the black-eyed kids, there are a few reports of similar mysterious figures that instead of black eyes, have ones that are pure white. And while scarce, these encounters are every bit as creepy and bizarre. And again, I can't think of one time, folks, not one time I've come across a story of this nature. So it says one of the most elaborate and striking reports of the white-eyed kids is a report that was featured on the website Paranormal. I've never even been there. I'm going to open that in a new tab. So on the site Paranormal, concerning a man who says that in 2013 he was living with his brother and brother's girlfriend in a fairly small southern town. Now he claims that one day he went for a ride in his truck at around 3 a.m. and on the way back he stopped at a small grocery store to get some cigarettes, parking his vehicle around the corner. Now, it was as he was getting back into his pickup truck to head back home that the weirdness began with a tapping at his window. Now, when he looked to see what the source was, he says there was a young boy of around 8 or 9 years of age standing there, just beyond the glass. The child was standing there completely motionless, and when asked what he wanted, merely politely asked the witness to roll the window down. The witness says, "My hand started to reach for the crank, but I stopped myself. That pit in my stomach was starting to feel wrong. I shook my head and I asked, 'What do you need, kid?' Another few seconds before, the kid replied, 'Mister, I think I'm lost.' I started to realize that beside this kid's mouth moving, he hasn't budged at all since knocking on my window. No change of facial expression, nothing. Where are your parents?' I realized that my voice was starting to quaver. What the F? I'm a veteran. I'm not easily intimidated. And this is just a child. He said, 'I can't find them. Can you drive me home? Can you take me home? Just unlock the doors and I'll get in.' Oh, no. I'm driving off at this point. At this point, I feel like something's up. I look away from the kid and for the first time to make sure. So he looked away for the first time to make sure I'd put the keys in the ignition. Check. I glanced over my right shoulder, wondering if this kid was bait for some kind of robbery. But there weren't even cars behind me for about a block, let alone people standing nearby. I'm psyching myself out. This kid needs some help, I told myself. So I looked back at the kid and my blood ran cold. Why hadn't I noticed before? The kid has no pupils. He doesn't even have irises. It's just white. Not like he's blind where the pupils are milky, just shark white eyes. Holy brown smelly stuff, he said. He still hasn't moved a muscle. Then I noticed his skin, pale, almost translucent. Now the witness by this point was feeling terror overcome him in the presence of this thing. Some nameless dread and sense of impending doom washed through him, and his shaking hand started up the ignition. The kid, up to this point, was still rather calm, timid, and pleading. Upon realizing that the witness was about to leave, his whole demeanor soured, taking on a whole new ominous tone. The witness goes on to say, as soon as that thing standing outside my truck heard the engine fire, he scowled and started knocking on the window. Not the light tapping from before, but hard. Mister, just let me in your truck and take me home. It's okay. I don't know how, but I could feel his voice more than hear it. Where previously what he was saying was hard to make out. And I threw the truck into drive and peeled out of there, glancing in the rear view only once. I'd cleared a full block. The kid still had barely moved and only turned his head to face me. What the F? I kept yelling to myself. I couldn't say anything else. I just kept driving at probably 15 miles per hour over the limit, and I'm pretty sure I blew through a couple of stop signs. It wasn't until I actually pulled into my driveway that I realised I was even heading towards home. I put my truck in park and took a few breaths to calm myself. After I got my bearings, I looked outside and realised that it was dark out. Late twilight, almost night. I looked at my watch, which read 7:01. I was no more than 5 miles away from the tobacco shop, but it took me almost 2.5 hours to get home. When did I lose time? That's interesting. When you start to factor in the whole losing time phenomenon, that's weird. And there's more and more people experiencing that, folks. More and more all the time. And you can rubbish it, but until maybe it happens to you, I would keep an open mind. And what does that mean if we're losing time? Remember the story I brought up not too many weeks ago, where there was a number of people on the same day had gone to bed on the Tuesday, but never woke up to the Thursday? That they lost a day somewhere? Did they really lose a day? What's going on? But back to the black-eyed, or excuse me, the toxic white-eyed children. He claims that he sat there shaking in his truck for a full 20 minutes, wondering if that creepy kid had followed him and was perhaps milling about in the shadows. And when he finally worked up the courage to get out and stumble to his house, where he locked all of the doors and patrolled the residence with a handgun. Now, when the brother and girlfriend came home, he told them what happened, but they didn't really take it seriously. Nevertheless, it was upsetting enough that he skipped work the following day and says that he was plagued by a sense that he was being constantly watched. The following day, he finally got back to his job as an IT personnel at the hospital, still wary and stashing his gun in the glove compartment just in case. And the story would take a rather strange turn as he was getting his truck from the parking garage to head home. Then I saw the handprints. 2 goddamn kid-sized handprints on the driver's side door and 2 on the windshield. Greasy, nasty effing, I didn't swear, handprints. I looked around the truck, down the parking aisle, nothing. So I unlocked the truck, stepped in, closed the door behind me, then pulled the pistol out of the glove box. I don't blame you, mate. I'd have been right there with you. I started to put the key into the ignition, but I didn't feel quite right about that. I wondered, that little bad word was all over my truck. What if he did something to it? So I got back out, I holstered my Glock. I'd worn the holster, but can't bring the pistol into the hospital, and popped the hood. I'm not much of a mechanic, so he didn't exactly know what to look for. So I didn't know exactly what to look for. I guess I wanted to make sure everything looked normal. Reasonably satisfied, not that I'd really recognised sabotage at a glance anyway, same here. For the toxic male that I am, I'm useless when it comes to engines. You let me inside a PC or something like that, software, I'm your daddy. Household appliances, putting together flat pack stuff, no bother. Engines? I don't know an exhaust from a carburetor. Honestly, I'm useless. I'm a disgrace to my fellow toxic males that way. I truly am. So reasonably, here I was, just here. I got back in the truck and locked the door, and as it was closing, I turned the ignition and no problems there. Once I put it in gear, I drove slowly and brake checked, just to make sure the brake line wasn't screwed with. I got home just fine though. The house was empty as usual, and as soon as the rain let up, I took my camera outside, hoping to take a photo of the handprints, but they'd washed off. Of course, I'm getting sick of this crap, it says. So he insists that the only entrances to the parking garage were guarded and that the handprints had not been there when he had arrived. Vehicles seem to be popular targets for these creatures, and I have to admit, when you look at the black-eyed children, the black-eyed version, they seem to be around cars as well. I don't know if that means something. Are we finding coincidence where it's just something that happens? I don't know. But it says another similar report along these lines comes from Reddit user who says he had a brush with the bizarre while at a 24-hour shopping centre car park waiting for a friend at around 10 p.m. Now he claims that as he sat there, lost in his thoughts, a young kid suddenly popped out of nowhere to tap on his window and ask for a ride. Now the witness asked him where his parents were, but the boy merely repeated that he was lost and needed a ride home. Things only got more harrowing from there, as the witness says. Now, that's almost identical to the first report, right? Guy in the car, kid comes up, knocking, please take me home, sir. Oh, how creepy. And anyway, in this day and age, how bad is it? How terrible is it that as an adult driving a car, even if you knew a child was like properly needing help, because that could be misconstrued by somebody seeing you letting a kid into your car, and because you yourself should be very aware of how it should look, you can't even help people anymore without possibly running the risk of getting into trouble. And that stops people helping one another. It's terrible. You know, back before I grew up, even you go back to 40s, 50s, people used to help each other. Think of that story we opened up with today about the plumber who's trying to help people who can't afford new boilers, new heating. 91-year-old women with leukemia, things like that. People who are priced out of just the most basic of stuff that we should all have. It's crazy. But back to the black-eyed kids. We want to get this done before we go away today, right? But don't go anywhere after the show, because Lucky is coming up. And not only Lucky, but Dr. Brooks Agnew as well. So then, let's get back to this, right? It says, vehicles seem to be popular targets. And then we get into it. It says, this was definitely weird. I looked at him again, then I did a double take. Holy crap, his eyes were white. Now, not just white around the edges, but unending white throughout the entire eye. No iris, no pupil, just a solid wall of light. I really don't know why, but I felt myself smiling slightly as I gazed at him. Is that like some kind of... Is that almost like a vampire glamouring people? I've seen the TV shows where vampires can look you in the eye. They do that crazy thing in the eye where they just put you into a trance. I've tried it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work on Anne anyway. She doesn't fall victim to my vampire stare. But are they almost like glamouring this dude? It says, then my thoughts began to collect again. It must have been about 3 seconds. Sorry kid, I've got to go. I immediately regretted replying. But you have to take me, the kid replied. I don't know how, but I could feel his voice more. Hang on, we've done that bit, right? We have done that bit. Had we done that bit? No, this is another bit. It just sounds exactly the same. So it says, I don't know, where is it? Yeah. Yeah, but I could feel his voice more than hear it. His words began echoing in my mind longer than it should have. Kid, I have to go. I started panicking. The kid replied again, this time with something indiscernible behind his voice. I'm lost and just want to go home. Now, I don't know how, but at this point it was as if somebody had put the kid's voice on a loudspeaker. And as he spoke, I felt as though a booming was resonating from within the kid. The force of the kid's voice was so strong, I felt strongly sympathetic to the kid, almost like I was being forced to by him. Anyway, with the last ounce of control I had left, I turned the car on and slammed on the accelerator. You better believe it. The kid immediately shouted out, "No, take me with you." It would have been really even scarier if he'd shouted it like that. I hope he didn't. At that point, it was as though the kid's voice was a machine gun firing into me. I immediately sped to the nearest exit and in a dreamlike state and drove into the night. My friend at this point could find his way back to his own house, which he did later. While driving and exiting from the car park, I could still feel his voice within me, resonating at an amplified volume. The force of his voice, it was as if he'd been picked up and violently shaken by the kid, whose voice was so clear, and my unconscious was analysing every nuance and inflection of what he had said, like I was being forced to. There was so much force behind it. In an incredibly eerie similarity to the previous report, the witness says that he got back to his apartment, an ominous thunderstorm started up, and he would notice an anomalous handprint on his car. Now, again, remember how we started the show? You know, coincidences, synchronicity. I mean, is this just random happenings? Have these two people randomly made up the same story with the same details? There was a lot of real similarities there, right? To the point where I thought I was having a deja vu. But it says there was a tremendous thunderstorm and I noticed flashes, although I didn't see it, of lightning. When I was at my apartment building, and I live in a complex, I opened a huge metal door to get in and it was soaking wet. There was a handprint on it. I only noticed when I looked down to pull on the handle at about the same height a small child would place their hands. The handprint was white, and although the whole door was dripping wet with water, the handprint seemed to be made of recently dried paint. I touched it and looked up and felt it with my hand just to make sure it was paint. It was. I looked down again, and the handprint within the 2-second span of me sampling it and looking up had gone from white to clear. From the rain dripping on the door, I touched it again and felt it. It was paint, but now completely soaked. I looked down again. It had vanished. I put my hand on where the paint had been, but there was nothing but a metal door behind it. For some reason, I looked behind me. Of course, there was nobody there. I would have absolutely crapped myself if that kid had been there at that point. You see, if you were making that story up, you'd have put the kid there at that point, right? I think so anyway. Hey, big shout out to Annie there. No shoe in hand. I'm doing well tonight. I went inside and made my way up to the apartment and had an early night. I've not encountered any white-eyed kids since or been of a supernatural nature. Now we go down to the bottom. I want to get the conclusion. It says here, in a way, many of these accounts seem to point to the white-eyed kids being some version of their more well-known black-eyed brethren. So is there some kind of link between them? Is that like training, where the white-eyed kids just training and then they get promoted like a black belt? I don't know, maybe like first Dan creepy kids. I don't know. So it goes on to say that what significance do such accounts have and what do they mean? What connection, if any, do these have to the black-eyed kids? Indeed, what are they, if anything? Are these demons, ghosts, aliens, or just figments of our own imagination? Whatever the answer may be, it's an interesting subspecies of phenomena concerning the black-eyed kids, and it is all so surreal and bizarre that it seems we are nowhere from figuring out what it's all about. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why we keep coming back for more. Because whether it's the white-eyed kids, the men in black, whether it's the black-eyed children or the men in white, women in white, he, she, theys in white, Bigfoot. What else do we have? We've got the Yowie. Whatever it is, folks, the more we look at these stories, the more we look at the woo, the more questions we get than answers. And that's why there's always going to be more for us to come back here and talk about in the future. And on that note, let me bid you farewell. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, I'm out of here. I hand over the TFR, Chalice, the mantle to Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew. They will guide you through the woo for the next 2 hours. Until next time, wherever you are, make it T, make it F, and make it R. And didn't he touch that dial? As the Whistler used to say. Folks, thank you so much for hanging out, chilling out with me today. I'll be back tomorrow on the Safe Space. I was knackered today. I didn't even think I was going to be able to do this show, but thanks to all of you out there, that's why I keep coming back for more. And I know you're wanting more, so I'll be back with Scotty Lopez tomorrow on the very, very, very uncut, uncensored Scotty Unplugged stream. Until then, keep it real, keep your minds open, keep looking for the woo, but don't ever let your brain turn to black goo. There you go, Anne. See? Cricket sending you love and smoochies from the chat room. What's that all about?